It was the summer of 1994. The sky above Northern California stretched wide and unbroken, painted in late afternoon gold. A red Ford Aerostar van hummed along the winding highway, windows cracked, cassette player blasting Hootie and the Blowfish. Inside sat the Martinez family, Robert Rob Martinez, early 40s, a mechanic with grease still under his nails. Linda, his wife, a school teacher, with kind eyes and a pack of books always nearby. Carla, 13, already rolling her eyes at her parents, clutching a Walkman. Diego, 9, face pressed against the glass, counting pine trees. Behind them, a blue Chevy Suburban followed close. The Bennett family. Mark Bennett, 42. Accountant, neatly combed hair even on a camping trip. Susan, his wife, a nurse, practical and sharp. Ethan, 11, Game Boy in his hands, oblivious to the scenery. The two families had planned the trip for months. A weekend by Lakewood, a quiet forest lake said to have the clearest water in the state. Rob shouted from the driver's seat. 3 more miles and we'll be roasting marshmallows. Diego cheered. Yes, I'm catching the biggest fish in that lake. From the car behind, Mark honked twice in agreement. The dirt road narrowed, pine needles crunching under the van's tires. At last, the clearing opened. Lakewood shimmered before them, ringed by towering evergreens, its surface like a sheet of glass. The families piled out, stretching, laughing. Linda breathed deep. Smell that air. Beats chalk dust and city smog. Susan teased. Let's see if you're saying that after 2 nights on the ground. Carla rolled her eyes, tugging her headphones over her ears, while Ethan wandered toward the lake. Game Boy forgotten, mesmerized by the reflection of the sinking sun. They set up 2 large canvas tents, one for each family, with lanterns strung between nearby branches. A picnic table groaned under the weight of coolers, sleeping bags, and mismatched enamel mugs. By nightfall, a fire crackled in the stone ring at the center of camp. Sparks flew upward, swallowed by the dark. The adults passed around beers while the kids roasted marshmallows. Diego burned his stick black, but ate it anyway. Rob grinned. This is it, huh? The good life. No traffic, no phones, no bosses. Mark adjusted his glasses. Don't get too comfortable. I still plan to beat you at fishing tomorrow. The kids laughed, sticky-fingered and drowsy. Carla lay on her back, headphones buzzing faintly. Carla murmured, I can see every star, like the whole sky's closer here. As the fire died down, silence settled heavy. Only crickets and the lap of water against the shore. Then a light flickered deeper in the woods. Not a lantern, not a firefly, but a steady white beam weaving between the trees. Diego sat up, whispering, Look, someone's out there. Rob frowned, shading his eyes. The beam moved closer, steady, deliberate. Mark muttered, Must be the park ranger, probably checking permits. The families watched as the light drew nearer. Suddenly the beam flared, a flashlight snapping directly into their faces. The children screamed, shielding their eyes. A tall figure stepped into the clearing. A man in what looked like a ranger's jacket, brimmed hat pulled low. But his face was strangely shadowed, features hard to place. The ranger spoke in a flat voice. You shouldn't be here tomorrow night. The words were cold, mechanical. Before anyone could respond, the figure turned, moving faster than seemed possible, melting back into the tree line. The family sat frozen, ears ringing with the echo of his voice. For long minutes, no one spoke. The fire popped. The woods pressed close. Finally, Ethan whispered, Dad, why'd he say that? Mark forced a laugh, though his hands trembled slightly. Just a weird ranger. Don't worry. Linda hugged Diego close. Carla slipped her headphones back on, but her eyes darted nervously toward the trees. Above them, the stars burned cold and distant. On their first night at Lakewood, the families expected nothing more than laughter, firelight, and stars. But the forest had other plans. A figure who wasn't a ranger, a warning that wasn't explained, and the sense that tomorrow would bring something far stranger than camping by the lake. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the towering pines, gilding the mist that clung to the forest floor. The lake reflected it all, a mirror of pale orange and silver, disturbed only by the occasional ripple of a fish breaking the surface. Inside the Martinez tent, Linda blinked awake to the faint sound of birds. For a fleeting moment, she forgot the night before. The blinding flashlight, the voice that chilled her marrow, the figure that moved too fast to be real. She breathed in pine-scented air and exhaled, telling herself, maybe it was a dream. But when she turned to see Diego curled beside her, fists clenched tight in sleep, she remembered his cries. She remembered her own scream, muffled in the blanket. Dreams didn't leave echoes like that. She slid out of the sleeping bag and quietly unzipped the flap. The air was cool, sharp, alive. In the clearing, Mark Bennett crouched by a small camp stove, blue flames sputtering under a battered kettle. Susan sat at the picnic table, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, smiling faintly as she poured dry cereal into bowls. They looked normal. Too normal. Soon both families gathered. Steam curled from mugs of instant coffee. The kids picked half-heartedly at their cereal, Carla plucking cornflakes one by one, Ethan tapping buttons on his Game Boy, Diego shoving spoonfuls in like the faster he ate. The sooner they could talk about it, Rob muttered, blowing on his coffee. Nothing like powdered creamer to ruin a good morning. Susan chuckled, wiping a bit of milk from Ethan's chin. Better than nothing. At least we remembered spoons. The mood seemed light, but Linda couldn't stand it. She set her mug down with a heavy thud. Linda said quietly, "So, we're just not going to talk about it?" Mark raised his brows, spoon halfway to his mouth. Talk about what? The words sliced through the morning calm. Carla lifted her headphones. Diego froze. Even the forest seemed to hush. Linda's voice shook. The ranger. Last night, he was right here. He blinded us with his flashlight. He told us not to stay tonight. Rob nodded, backing her up. He wasn't just some hiker. He came out of nowhere, disappeared into the trees like he was never there. Diego jumped in, eyes wide. I saw him. He had a hat. His light was so bright I thought it burned my eyes, but Mark only frowned. He stirred his cereal slowly, as if buying time. Linda. Rob. We didn't see anything. Susan, Ethan, and I, we slept all night. No ranger, no flashlight, no voice. Susan gave a polite, uneasy smile. Maybe it was a dream? Stress? First night camping. You know how it is. Linda's jaw clenched. A dream doesn't wake three people at once. A dream doesn't leave you trembling. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then Carla, who had been staring at her Walkman as if wishing it could swallow her whole, finally spoke. Carla whispered, I saw him too. Everyone turned. Her voice shook but grew firmer as she went on. I had my headphones on, but I saw the light. It hurt. He stood right there looking at us, like he wasn't even blinking. Susan's smile faltered. Mark sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Carla, sweetheart, you were half asleep. Dreams feel real sometimes. Carla's eyes flashed. Then how come my dream was the same as Mom's, Dad's, and Diego's, huh? The question hung in the air, unanswered. Rob leaned across the table, voice low, sharp. Mark, stop pretending this didn't happen. We were all sitting right there. We saw the same damn thing. You telling me my whole family hallucinated together? Mark fired back, calm but biting. And you're telling me my whole family slept through it? No noise, no light, nothing. Rob, maybe you were overtired. Maybe your lantern flickered. Maybe it was shadows. But don't drag us into your nightmares. Linda's hand trembled on her mug. Nightmares don't wear uniforms. Nightmares don't say, you shouldn't be here tomorrow night. Diego's spoon clattered to the table. His small voice trembled. Mom, are we leaving? Linda pulled him close. Maybe, honey. Maybe we should. But Carla slammed her hand down. No, we can't just leave because some weirdo scared us. It's our vacation. We're fine. Ethan smirked, eyes still on his Game Boy. Yeah, it's nothing. You guys are acting like babies. Diego glared at him. You didn't see his eyes. They were glowing. Ethan laughed, but unease flickered across his face. Linda's mind spun back to the night before. The way the man's voice had sounded. Flat, mechanical, hollow. Like a tape recorder with no breath behind it. She shivered. Rob clenched his fists. thinking of the speed with which the figure had vanished. No ranger moved like that. He'd grown up hunting in woods like these. He knew what human footsteps sounded like. This wasn't that. Mark, meanwhile, was desperate to keep control. He prided himself on being the rational one, the anchor. He couldn't afford to let fear dictate the trip, not in front of his son. If we admit to shadows, he thought, we lose our grip. Susan, though she sided with Mark aloud, couldn't shake Carla's trembling voice. 3 people dreaming the same thing? She stirred her coffee, wondering if perhaps... Finally, Mark stood, brushing crumbs from his shirt. All right. Enough. We're not cutting the trip short over a flashlight. We promised the kids fishing, and we're staying. Rob rose too, eyes burning. Mark, he warned us, we shouldn't be here tonight. Mark forced a laugh. Yeah, well, I don't take orders from boogeymen. The words rang hollow, but he let them stand. The kids exchanged glances. Carla looked defiant, Diego scared, Ethan smug, and the forest around them listened. When morning broke, reason divided the camp. One family clung to what they'd seen, a warning carved into their memory. The other dismissed it as shadows and stress. But in Lakewood's silence, truth was patient. The sun would set again, and the forest, ancient and watching, would not forget what it had promised. The afternoon light slanted through the trees in golden bars, but for the Martinez family it brought no comfort. Linda walked the lake's edge, her shoes crunching over pebbles. Each ripple of water seemed deliberate, as though something beneath waited for her gaze. Carla skipped stones, her face set in defiance. See? It's normal, just water. No monster, no creepy ranger. Linda sighed. You keep saying that, honey, but last night was real. Carla tossed another stone. Harder this time. Maybe. But if we leave, Ethan will never let me live it down. He'll say I'm a coward. Linda looked at her daughter, recognizing the stubborn pride. Carla wanted to be older, braver, immune to fear. But Linda knew fear could save a life. At their side of camp, Mark and Susan lounged in folding chairs. Ethan sat with his Game Boy, the chip-tuned sounds mixing awkwardly with the bird calls. Susan stretched. Feels good, doesn't it? Just quiet. Fresh air. I think Linda's stress is rubbing off on the kids, but honestly, I've never slept so well. Mark chuckled. Exactly, it's all in their heads. Tonight we'll roast marshmallows, tell stories. They'll forget all about it. Susan hesitated, glancing at the tree line. You didn't feel anything strange, though? The woods do seem heavier today. Mark waved it off. Atmosphere, that's all. People see what they expect to see. The families came together for dinner. The fire crackled, flames painting everyone's faces in flickers of orange. Diego clung to his father's side, while Carla tried to act unaffected, laughing too loudly at Ethan's sarcastic jokes. Rob roasted hot dogs, staring into the fire. I don't care what anyone says. I'm keeping watch tonight. Mark rolled his eyes. You'll just spook yourself again, Linda cut in sharply. Don't dismiss him. You didn't see what we saw. Mark's jaw tightened. For the first time, doubt shadowed his expression, but pride kept him silent. Far below in the valley town, Grandma Rosa stood on her porch watering flowers when she froze. A strange glow shimmered above the distant forest. At first she thought it was the moon caught in fog, but the shape was wrong. Too round, too steady. She whispered a prayer, clutching her rosary. Across town, Grandpa Henry saw it too, as he sat with his old hound. The dog whined, staring toward the mountains. Henry muttered, Well, damn, that ain't lightning. They both picked up their phones. By midnight, the sheriff's office was ringing with calls. Back at camp, as marshmallows browned and laughter softened, the glow appeared above the trees, not flickering, not fading, a white radiance, as though daylight had returned in the dead of night. Diego gasped. It's him! He said tonight. Linda grabbed her son. Everyone inside the tents now. Mark tried to laugh, but his voice cracked. Probably some hikers with lanterns. Rob stood, heart hammering. No lantern shines like that. The glow grew stronger, filling the clearing. The trees themselves cast no shadows. The light swallowed everything. The fire sputtered and died as though starved of oxygen. Inside the tents, the children clutched sleeping bags. Carla whispered to Ethan, "You believe us now?" Ethan's bravado cracked. I don't know." Outside, a hum filled the air. Not mechanical, not natural. A vibration that crawled into bone marrow. Rob shouted, "Mark, do you hear it?" Mark didn't answer. He was staring upward, mouth open, face bleached by white. Linda pulled at him. "Don't look. Come inside." But the hum surged. The light pulsed. And then, silence. When the sheriff arrived an hour later, the clearing was empty. Tents collapsed, chairs overturned, food half-eaten. A single marshmallow burned black on the stick, but not a soul remained. At Lakewood, silence swallowed the night. Families who laughed around the fire were gone before dawn. Some said they fled. Others whispered they were taken. But when the sheriff found only empty tents and cold ashes, a story older than the woods began to breathe again. The ranger had kept his promise.
The small town of Pine Valley, nestled just outside California's Lakewood National Park, had lived with the mystery like a scar that never healed. Every October, the local paper reprinted the same photo. Two smiling families outside their tents, taken the day before they vanished. In 2020, the photo appeared again. Yellowed now, edges frayed. Above it, the headline read, 26 years later. Where are the Lakewood families? Rosa Martinez, now in her 70s, clipped the article from the paper. Her hands trembled as she slid it into a scrapbook already thick with clippings. "I told them," she whispered, staring out her window toward the mountains. "I told them something was up there." That summer, Pine Valley approved a major project, a new visitor center for Lakewood National Park. Bulldozers rolled through dirt roads long abandoned, reopening the trailhead that had been closed since '94. On the second week of excavation, workers struck something unusual, a circle of scorched earth, buried under layers of pine needles. The soil was fused, glassy, as if fire hotter than any camp blaze had burned there. One worker, a young man named Danny, dropped his shovel and muttered, This ain't normal. It's like lightning, but no trees burned." Another joked nervously, "Maybe it's where those folks disappeared. Alien landing pad, right?" That night, Danny didn't sleep. He called his uncle, a deputy sheriff back in '94. By morning, the FBI had been notified. Sheriff Henry, white-haired now, was pulled from retirement for questioning. He sat in his porch chair, a faded badge still hanging in the hallway inside. "Agent Miller, FBI. Sheriff, back in 1994, you responded to a call. Families gone, tents left behind. Walk us through what you saw." Henry's voice cracked like gravel. "I've told it 100 times. Sheriff's Department got the call from Rosa Martinez. Said she saw a light over the woods. By the time I drove up, it was near midnight. The glow was gone. What I found, I'll never forget. 2 tents collapsed, food still on plates, toys scattered. Not a sign of struggle. No footprints leading out. Just nothing." He paused, eyes misty. "You ever see a table set for dinner and everyone vanishes mid-bite? That's what it felt like." The FBI agents exchanged uneasy glances. Reporters swarmed Rosa's porch. For years she had been dismissed as hysterical, the grandmother who cried aliens. But the scorched circle had given her new credibility. Rosa to the cameras. "He warned them. My son told me. A man with a light. Said not to stay. They didn't listen. And now look. You dig 26 years later, and you find fire burned into the ground." She clutched her rosary, eyes flashing with grief and fury. "Don't you dare call it coincidence. They were taken and they'll come back." By autumn, the FBI had set up a mobile command post near the old campsite. Yellow tape marked the perimeter. Evidence markers dotted the soil where strange metallic fragments were unearthed. Thin shards, sharp as glass but lighter than aluminum. Agent Miller whispered to his partner, Agent Hayes. "Not steel, not aircraft grade. Lab says it doesn't match anything in our database." Hayes muttered, "Then where the hell did it come from?" Night fell, And the agents worked under floodlights. Insects buzzed, generators hummed. Beyond the glow, the forest loomed dark and endless. And then, the humming started. Not the generator. Not insects. Something deeper. Familiar to the sheriff, though he never admitted it. A vibration that rattled teeth, echoing from nowhere. National media descended on Pine Valley. CNN ran the headline, "The Lakewood Mystery, FBI reopens case of vanished families." Old classmates of Carla and Ethan Bennett gave interviews. Childhood photos circulated, grinning faces frozen in 1994 fashion, bright shirts, denim jackets, Walkmans slung on belts. People who barely remembered them now spoke with conviction. They were good kids. Didn't deserve this. The truth's been buried too long. For Diego's childhood friend Maria, the reopening of the case reopened scars. She stood outside the park entrance holding a candle at a vigil. I was 9 when Diego disappeared. He was my best friend, and for years I'd dream of him knocking at my door, asking if I wanted to play. Please, find them. During evidence cataloging, an FBI tech uncovered something shocking. A VHS tape labeled Lakewood Security, OCT, 1994. It had been misfiled for decades in the county archives. When played, the footage showed a grainy overlook of the park's ranger station. At 11:58 p.m., the forest horizon lit up with a blinding white glow. The image warbled as though the camera lens itself was bending. A shadow passed across the frame, not human, thin, angular, moving too smoothly. And then, the tape cut to static. 26 years later, the forest spoke again. Scorched earth, forgotten tapes, fragments of metal not of this world. For families who never stopped searching, hope ignited with terror. The FBI had arrived. But as they would learn, Lakewood did not keep secrets. Lakewood kept promises. The Pine Valley Town Hall smelled faintly of old wood and lemon polish. Folding chairs scraped against the floor as locals packed the room. At the front stood Agents Miller and Hayes, flanked by a projector screen showing grainy stills of the rediscovered VHS footage. Agent Miller spoke clearly. 26 years ago, 2 families vanished from Lakewood Park. We are reopening the case with new evidence. We ask anyone with knowledge, memories, or withheld information to come forward. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Faces old and weary turned to each other, whispering. For years, the story had been a ghost they carried. Now the government was asking them to relive it. An old man at the back raised his hand. I was out hunting that night. I saw lights. Thought it was the ranger station burning. But when I got closer, the woods went quiet. No crickets, no owls, just buzzing. I ain't never told nobody 'cause they'd call me crazy. Agent Hayes leaned forward, taking notes. Can you describe the light? The old man swallowed hard. White, pure white, but it didn't shine like fire. It bent around the trees, like daylight that didn't belong. The crowd shifted uneasily. Later, at the diner across from Town Hall, reporters scribbled furiously as locals swapped stories. One waitress whispered, "My uncle swore the Martinez boy's voice echoed in the tunnels years after they were gone. He worked maintenance. Said he heard kids laughing clear as day, but no one was down there." Another man chimed in. "The Bennett's car, remember? Found at the trailhead, locked tight, keys inside. No sign of footprints past the gravel, like they vanished right off the face of the earth." A reporter asked, "You think it was aliens?" Silence fell. Then softly the waitress muttered, "What else makes people disappear without a trace?" The FBI interviewed Rosa in her home once more. Her living room was a shrine. Photo frames of her son, his wife, her grandkids. Candles burned beneath their school portraits. Agent Hayes gently asked, "Mrs. Martinez, can you tell us again what you saw the night they vanished?" Rosa's eyes welled with tears. "I saw a glow over the trees. Not the moon. It moved. It pulsed. And then, it was gone. I called the sheriff right then. I knew. I knew something terrible happened." Her voice hardened. "They didn't run away. They didn't drown. They were taken, and those who took them promised they'd be back. She stared at the agents, her frail hands gripping the rosary. You think you can investigate this with files and flashlights, but you don't understand. Lakewood isn't just a forest, it's a doorway. At the FBI mobile lab near the park, technicians spread the metallic fragments across a table under bright white lamps. Magnified, the shards revealed strange ridges and grooves, almost like circuitry, but organic, not machined. One tech muttered, "It's like bone and metal fused, nothing natural, nothing manufactured." Another whispered, "What if it's part of something alive?" Agent Miller overheard, frowning. "Catalog it. Don't speculate." But in the corner, Hayes scribbled in his notebook, "Alive." That evening, Sheriff Henry walked alone down Main Street, cane tapping against the sidewalk. He stopped at the closed hardware store and peered into the glass. His reflection stared back, older, heavier, haunted. He muttered under his breath, "I should have searched harder that night. I should have gone deeper into the trees, maybe I could have." But then he froze. Across the street, near the alley by the old feed store, he thought he saw movement. A tall figure, motionless, almost blending into the shadows. Henry blinked. The figure was gone. His cane trembled as he walked faster toward home. 3 local teens, bored by the media frenzy, hiked to the restricted site that night. They brought beers and flashlights, laughing nervously. "Come on," one said. "We'll film it, post it, get 1 million views. #Lakewood." They reached the yellow tape. Beyond it, the scorched circle glowed faintly in the moonlight, soil still fused to glass after decades. One girl whispered, "Do you hear that? Like humming?" The others laughed it off, until all 3 flashlights flickered, then died. Their screams carried far into the trees. By morning, they stumbled back to town, pale and shaking, refusing to speak. Frustrated, Agent Miller called another meeting. "Half this town is sitting on stories. Every rumor matters. Don't waste our time with jokes. If you saw lights, heard voices, anything, you need to tell us now." A middle-aged woman in the crowd spoke up, voice trembling. "I was Rosa's neighbor. The night they vanished, I heard her son's little boy, Diego. He was crying outside my window. I opened the door. No one was there." Gasps filled the room. Miller frowned. "You're certain?" The woman nodded. "I tried to convince myself it was the wind, but I know my godson's voice." The silence of 26 years cracked open. Old voices rose, old wounds bled, and the forest whispered through every corner of Pine Valley. The FBI had come seeking answers, but what they found were stories of shadows, humming earth, and children's laughter that should have died with time. And Lakewood, patient as ever, was ready to speak again. Floodlights cut through the Lakewood clearing. The scorched circle lay at the center, ringed with yellow markers and sensitive recording equipment. FBI techs ran cables into the soil, measuring electromagnetic pulses, radiation levels, even sound frequencies. Agent Miller commanded, "All right, team, we run the test at 23:30 sharp. Night vision on, audio feeds hot. Nothing gets missed tonight." Sheriff Henry stood off to the side, arms folded, eyes fixed on the tree line. He muttered to Rosa, who insisted on being there despite her age, "This is a mistake. Whatever happened then, it doesn't want to be measured." Rosa clutched her rosary. "They're coming back. I can feel it." To Miller's frustration, a pair of self-styled paranormal investigators showed up, live streaming with shaky cameras. One, a young man in a black hoodie, announced to his audience, "We're at the site of America's most suppressed alien abduction. FBI's trying to cover it up." Hayes grabbed his arm. "You'll step back behind the tape or you'll spend the night in holding. Your choice." The man smirked, backing away, but his camera stayed trained on the circle. At 23:20, the clearing fell unnaturally quiet. Crickets stopped. The breeze stilled. Even the fireflies vanished. A tech muttered, audio's picking up subsonic vibration. Like an engine, but everywhere at once. Sheriff Henry whispered, "That's it. That's what I heard in 94. The hum grew, deep and resonant. The soil inside the circle began to tremble. At exactly 23:30, the circle lit. A white glow, steady and cold, erupted from beneath the earth. Floodlights dimmed, cameras flickered. Agent Miller shouted, "Keep recording, don't shut down." But monitors scrambled, images twisting into static. The glow grew, rising into a column of light that reached into the sky. Rosa gasped, tears running down her face. "They're here. My family is here." From within the hum, faint voices emerged, high-pitched, overlapping like children laughing. Diego's voice rang clear as a bell. "Mom, over here. Come play." Carla's voice followed, sharp and scared. "Don't look at it. Don't look." Technicians froze. Agents exchanged horrified glances. The voices echoed from all directions, impossible to pin down. Then the light shifted, revealing shapes inside it. Human silhouettes, small, child-sized, sitting as though still in folding chairs around a fire. Agent Hayes whispered, "My God, they never left." But as quickly as they appeared, the shapes warped, dissolving into static outlines like sketches rubbed from paper. The column collapsed, snapping back into the ground with a thunderous crack. The forest roared alive again. Crickets, wind, leaves. But the clearing was changed. The scorched circle was gone. In its place, a perfectly smooth disk of glassy earth still warm to the touch. On its surface lay 3 items that hadn't been there before: a child's red sneaker, a cracked Walkman with a mixtape labeled Summer '94, a torn journal page, smeared with dirt. Agent Miller lifted the page with gloved hands. The writing was childish but desperate. "We are not supposed to be here. The man with the light isn't real. Don't stay another night." One of the paranormal live streamers screamed. His camera feed showed a tall shadow moving just behind the agents, angular, too tall, bending unnaturally at the joints. The man dropped his phone, sprinting into the woods. His scream echoed, then cut off. The phone lay on the ground, lens cracked, but still recording. The FBI came seeking evidence. They left with more questions. Voices that should have died with children echoed through the trees. Objects from the past surfaced where none should exist. And shadows moved just beyond the light, patient as time itself. The forest had waited 26 years to speak again. And it had not finished its story. The clearing smelled of burned ozone and wet earth. Ashes drifted in the breeze like snow. FBI agents moved with measured urgency, photographing the glassy soil where the light had risen only hours before. Sheriff Henry leaned on his cane, staring at the smooth circle. "In '94, I thought I'd seen the strangest thing a man could see. I was wrong." Rosa clutched her rosary tighter, eyes brimming. "They tried to speak to us. My Diego. I heard him." Agent Miller rubbed his temples. He hadn't slept. "Mrs. Martinez, with all respect, what you heard could have been—" Rosa cut him off, voice sharp as glass. "Don't you dare tell me what I heard. A mother knows her child." Miller didn't argue. He couldn't. Inside a makeshift evidence tent, Hayes laid the 3 items on a sterile table: the sneaker, the Walkman, the journal page. The sneaker's rubber was brittle, crumbling at the edges, but the laces were perfectly tied. Too perfect. The Walkman had mud caked inside. Hayes popped the tape door open. The cassette inside rattled but was intact. The label in shaky block letters read, "Summer '94, Carla." The journal page, once cleaned, revealed more words beneath the dirt. "He isn't the ranger. His eyes hurt when you look too long. He said the night belongs to them. We shouldn't have stayed. Please, if anyone finds this, don't let them take us." Hayes whispered, "It's like a message left knowing someone someday would come back." Miller stared at the objects, unsettled. But how the hell do they appear 26 years later, still warm to the touch? Back at the command post, technicians threaded Carla's cassette into a digitizer. Static hissed through the speakers before faint music played, a mixtape of early 90s hits. But midway through side A, the music warped, slowing, voices bleeding in, children laughing. A man's voice followed, monotone, mechanical. "You shouldn't be here tomorrow night." The room froze. Rosa covered her mouth, tears spilling. That's him. That's the one they saw. The laughter rose, distorted, overlapping until it became a scream, then silence. The tape ejected itself with a click, as though rejecting further play. By noon, national networks set up outside Pine Valley. Anchors in polished suits spoke with dramatic solemnity. The Lakewood families vanished in 1994. Today, the FBI confirms new evidence has surfaced. Items believed to belong to the missing children, discovered during a night experiment gone wrong. Locals shook their heads at the cameras. Some demanded answers. Others packed bags and left town, unwilling to live beneath the mountain's shadow any longer. The sheriff muttered to Hayes, "They'll make a circus out of it, but none of them will stay here after dark." That evening, a ranger radioed in, "Sir, we've got another one. South Trail. Exact same size." Miller and Hayes rushed to the site. Another glassy disc lay in the soil, this one fresher, as though burned only hours ago. In its center, a small plastic toy truck faded red, the wheels melted slightly. Miller knelt, his voice low. "They're leaving us breadcrumbs, or warnings." Hayes scanned the tree line, uneasy. Or trophies. That night, Rosa dreamt vividly. She stood in the forest, barefoot, the hum vibrating through her chest. A white light approached, and through it she saw Diego, older now, not a boy but not a man, his face pale and eyes too bright. He reached for her hand, whispering, "Don't let them close the door. If they close it, we'll never come back." She awoke screaming, drenched in sweat. When Miller arrived at her house, Rosa clutched his sleeve. "They're trying to come home, but someone or something is keeping them." Haunted, Henry finally confessed to the agents what he had hidden for 26 years. "The night I went up there, after the call, I saw tracks. Not footprints, not boots. Long, narrow impressions, sunk deep like something heavier than a man walked. I followed them 30 yards, then they just stopped. I told myself I was tired seeing things. I buried it in my report. But I knew." He stared at them, eyes hollow. "If they're back, we ain't seen the worst yet." Near midnight, as agents cataloged evidence, a figure approached the tape line. A tall man in a ranger uniform, hat pulled low. Miller called out, "Sir, this is restricted. Identify yourself." The man didn't move. He simply lifted his flashlight, blindingly bright, sweeping across the camp. Rosa gasped, clutching her chest. "That's him." But when agents sprinted forward, the figure vanished into the trees. No footprints, no heat signature, nothing. The forest gave its echoes, shoes, tapes, voices that defied time, but with every clue came a shadow, a reminder that what had taken the families was not finished. For 26 years, Pine Valley lived with silence. Now the silence had broken, and the forest once more had begun to speak. In a cramped FBI field office trailer, Agent Hayes flipped through boxes of old evidence files. Dust coated the cardboard, labels smudged by decades of neglect. He pulled a folder marked Lakewood, 1994, Miskey. Inside were photographs of the original campsite. Tents collapsed, hot dogs left on sticks, cereal boxes still open. But one photo chilled him, the corner of a figure caught in the background. Blurry, humanoid, too tall, one arm bent backward unnaturally. Hayes muttered, "Why the hell wasn't this flagged?" The tech beside him frowned. "Sir, that frame wasn't in the digitized file. Looks like it was pulled before the report was finalized." Hayes exhaled sharply. Somebody buried this. Meanwhile, in Pine Valley, fear spread like wildfire. The diner stayed half empty. Schools reported absences, and locals whispered about leaving before the next full moon. At the general store, a woman muttered to another, "My boy saw lights in the trees last night." Thought it was hunters? But hunters don't hum like that. Another man added, "My dog won't go near the woods anymore, just growls at the tree line." People crossed themselves when they spoke Rosa's name. Others said she had brought this back with her persistence. Sheriff Henry heard it all and shook his head. They're scared because they know it's real this time. Back at the FBI command post, technicians tried again with Carla's mixtape, running it through advanced filters. This time, between static and warped music, another voice emerged. A whisper. Older, darker. "They belong to us now. Don't stay another night." Miller slammed his fist on the desk. Same words the family heard. Whoever or whatever it was, they left a record. Rosa, sitting in the corner, whispered through tears, "They're trapped. And that thing, it's guarding them." A young investigative journalist, Megan Clark, arrived from Los Angeles. She pushed past the tape with her press badge, notebook in hand. Megan asked Miller, "Agent, is it true you recovered objects from '94? Do you believe they're evidence of extraterrestrial contact?" Miller's jaw clenched. No comment. But Megan pressed on. "People need answers. Half this town's ready to evacuate. If you don't control the story, rumors will." Hayes pulled Miller aside. "She's right. The panic's worse than the mystery." That evening, the FBI prepared again. Sensors were placed not just at the original circle, but across several trails. Sheriff Henry muttered, "You're wasting time with gadgets. It doesn't want to be caught." As darkness fell, the forest grew heavy with silence. Then, at 2247, an agent radioed in. "South perimeter. We've got movement. Lights." Cameras turned. Through the trees, a faint glow pulsed, moving like it was alive. Not lanterns, not fire. A slow, rolling wave of white light sweeping the forest. At the same time, Pine Valley residents looked up from their porches. The glow spilled into the sky, visible miles away. Phones rang at the sheriff's office. Grandma Rosa, watching from her window, whispered, "They've come for them again." Children cried. Dogs barked. Church bells rang as frightened townsfolk gathered, some praying, some screaming. The hum returned, deep, vibrating through the valley. In the clearing, Hayes gripped his radio. "Units, hold your ground. Do not approach the light." But one young agent, shaken, stepped forward. His body cam caught his last words. "There's someone in there. A kid. He's waving." The camera showed a small silhouette inside the glow, arms raised, lips moving. The agent took one more step and the feed cut to static. When the light faded minutes later, the clearing was empty. The agent was gone. Chaos erupted. Miller screamed for lockdown. Hayes slammed his headset on the table. "God damn it, we just lost one of our own." Sheriff Henry, pale and shaking, whispered, "Now you understand. They don't just take children, they take whoever answers." Rosa sobbed, gripping her rosary. "They're still trying to get back, but the forest won't let them." The shadows returned, not as memory but as presence. 26 years after two families vanished, the forest claimed another. The FBI came to find answers, but Lakewood offered only echoes and fear. The light was no longer history. It was here now, alive, and it wasn't finished. The church bells tolled midnight as Pine Valley gathered in the square. Mothers clutched children, fathers whispered prayers, and teenagers recorded shaky videos on their phones. At the front, Sheriff Henry raised a trembling hand. "Everyone stay calm. The FBI is handling this." Agent Miller, exhausted, stepped up. "We're increasing patrols. No one goes near the park tonight." A woman in the crowd shouted, "You can't stop it. They're back for more." Fear rippled like wildfire. Rosa Martinez pushed forward, rosary swinging from her hand. "You don't understand. They don't want us. They want the children. They're trying to come back through the light. And if we don't listen, we'll lose more." Her words silenced the crowd. Even Miller couldn't dismiss her anymore. At the command post, Hayes slid Carla's cassette into the player once more. Static filled the speakers. Then a new voice emerged, one they hadn't heard before. It was older, ragged, desperate. "Please, stop following the light. Don't answer it. We can't come back. We don't belong here anymore." Hayes froze. That's not a child. That's an adult." Miller whispered, "If that's Carla, or Diego, then they've grown. Wherever they are, time's not the same." Despite orders, Sheriff Henry drove up the mountain road one final time. His cruiser headlights cut through the mist. At the old trailhead he saw it, the glow, rising like dawn from the forest floor. He whispered into his recorder, "This is it. Lakewood's truth. If I don't come back, tell them I tried." He stepped into the trees, light swallowing his figure. The cruiser remained, engine idling. Henry was never seen again. From Pine Valley, the townsfolk watched the glow stretch into the sky. For a moment it was beautiful, like the northern lights, white and pure. Children pointed, laughing nervously. Parents held them tighter. Then the glow pulsed once, twice, and vanished. Darkness rushed back. The next morning, agents combed the forest. No sign of Sheriff Henry. No footprints, no heat signatures. But inside the scorched circle lay one final object. A badge, bent and burned at the edges, still reading, Sheriff Henry Alvarez. Beside it, etched into the soil as though burned by heat, "We were never supposed to stay." Weeks later, Rosa walked alone to Lakewood Lake. The FBI had pulled out. The media circus had moved on. She stood at the water's edge whispering, "I'll wait, mijo. As long as it takes. I'll wait." The lake rippled. For a moment she thought she saw Diego's reflection. Older now, eyes hollow, mouth moving soundlessly. Then it was gone. 26 years after their disappearance, the forest gave back voices, fragments, and warnings. But not the families. The FBI closed its files. The town closed its doors. Yet Lakewood remained, silent by day, waiting by night. And sometimes when the wind carries the hum, those who listen swear they still hear children laughing, calling from the trees. The light was never finished. It was only waiting.